What's up, gamers, and welcome to another episode of the All In Podcast. I am the League Dad, and if you're new here, I just want to say welcome, and I wanted to give you a little intro about our podcast. So me and three other friends, Kevin, Mitchell, and Alistair, we have a podcast called the All In Podcast, which we've been doing now for about 5 years. It's a podcast that pretty much focuses on the LCS, but we also like to dive into things all about the game, whether it's news surrounding the league, whether it's patch notes, or just general gameplay thoughts and musings. We've done this for so long because we love it, and we love talking to other people about the game. So before we get into the interview, if you'd like to join a community of people who love talking about the LCS and anything league related, then I'd like to invite you to our Discord, which I'll link in the description. And if you love podcasts and the LCS, then I invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, or you can find us on all your major podcast platforms. Thanks again for stopping by, and now enjoy our interview with Azael.
Now, here's your hosts, the League Dad, Kevin, Mitchell, and Alistair.
Well, hello again, and I gotta say that I'm super excited for this segment we've got coming up here. As normal, we've got Kevin, Mitchell, and Alistair. I know you guys love them, and it's always fun, but today we've got a special guest. He's literally a world champion. If you've ever watched the LCS in the past decade, you've seen him on the cast, you've seen him on the podcast, The Dive, and he's just an overall great guy, great personality. But join me in giving a warm welcome to our special guest today. We've got Azael. Thank you for being here today, my friend.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, great. I know this is kind of perfect timing because, you know, we got the finals and then MSI, so we really appreciate you taking some time. So we've all kind of prepared just our biggest question that we've been dying to ask you, and just wanted to pick your brain on that. So if it's all right with you, we'll just go ahead and get started.
Yeah, let's get it.
All right, cool. So this first one is from me. So I am a dad, a husband, and as referred to here often, I am a boomer, like a true boomer. And so I know you're married, and yep. You know, I'm sure you don't have to get into it, but I'm sure maybe family life is there. I know you got pets and all that stuff. So I wanted to ask you more of a personal question and how you balance, you know, work with the LCS, games, and just being a husband, all of that balance, because I know it can be, you know, pretty difficult to do all of that.
Yeah, it definitely can at times. I mean, a big thing for me is that my wife like understands the space. She's into gaming. You know, she works at Riot. She has worked in the esports space and stuff as well. So, I mean, a big thing for me in like finding a relationship, finding a partner, was finding someone who like understood and respected, you know, like my passion for gaming and my passion for esports. Because I think, you know, if you're with someone who doesn't get it, who doesn't get that this is your work and this is your, you know, your passion as well, then I think it could be hard to understand like why I'm spending so much time on a computer, or why I'm spending so much time, you know, watching League or whatever. But it's like, you know, that's the job, right? It's definitely not like a 9 to 5, because you're kind of expected to know like everything about the game. There's so many regions to watch. There's always more games to watch. For us, I think a lot of it is about, you know, just like sharing shared interests and making sure we're always trying to take time to spend together. You know, if we're on the road, then obviously we're making time to, you know, maybe play some games together, or call each other, or text each other at the very least. Something that's always been big in our relationship is always just taking time to eat our meals together. You know, like even if we're both really busy, we always just try to take time to stop for a few minutes and just grab a bite, chat, you know, do that sort of thing. But we have a lot of shared interests. You know, we like hiking, we like going out to eat, we like playing games, we like, you know, watching shows and stuff. So I think that makes a big difference, is that like a lot of our interests are shared interests. So, you know, that gives us kind of like some common ground and things that we always look forward to doing together.
That's great. And I just got one quick follow-up. Is that, are you telling me that even though you're both in the same space, there's never been an argument where you're playing, you know, a little too much WoW, or you're just trying to grind in that next level, and she was like, hey, it's time to spend time? Like, you've never had that happen. Come on, man. You can be honest.
I've definitely had that happen. I mean, okay. I'm pretty competitive, and I've got definitely an addictive personality. So sometimes I can go too hard on the games and be playing too much for sure. And I've got to dial it back a little bit, you know? Okay. I think that happens to a lot of gamers, right? Yeah. When you get really into a game and stuff, definitely, especially with like MMOs. MMOs are deadly, man. There's just like always more you can be playing.
Yeah, for sure. Well, okay, good. So then there is some normalcy there, even if you are a gaming couple. So glad to know that you're on that same level. All right. Well, that was my question. Thank you for answering. Next up, we've got Kevin. I know he's got a good question for you.
Yeah. So my question was, we all know the meme about you winning the World Championship. I know you won an IEM. I think you won a Battle.net Invitational. I remember something about an American Regional Championship. So my question really was, did you ever consider going pro in a different game afterward? Or if not, what was the reason for you moving to a more, professional, just a traditional professional study in esports?
Yeah, I definitely did consider it. Yeah, I won IEM World Championship. I won a number of MLGs. I won, back-to-back North American championships and stuff. So I won a lot of stuff in my esports days with WoW. I was actually really into StarCraft 2 and I actually got offered sponsorship for StarCraft 2 because I hit Grandmaster and I was playing that a lot. I actually ended up casting it and stuff. I was living in the EG Pro Gaming House. I don't know if any of you guys followed StarCraft 2, but with Idra and Machine and oh, cool. And In Control and Thorzane was there at times, and Stefano, and there was a whole bunch of people, right? So I lived there for a year and a half, and I was casting EG's StarCraft League, and I was playing an enormous amount of StarCraft at the time. But yeah, when StarCraft 2 first came out, I actually played the first ever StarCraft 2 show match at MLG. Because they basically got released and they didn't have StarCraft 2 pros there. And so they were asking around, trying to find if anyone was good at StarCraft or played. I was like, yeah, I play. And so I played the first ever MLG show match and I won that. And then I got really high ranked in beta and I got high ranked and stuff and I got offered sponsorship. For me, it was I was still playing pro WoW at the time. And the reason I didn't decide to pursue it was, I just even though I was really high ranked on ladder, the reality is it's obviously incredibly hard to compete StarCraft 2 at the highest levels, and so much of it is about your mechanical ability and where that limit is, and to even understand if you were going to be able to compete at actual world elite level, right? I could have accepted a sponsorship and been a pro, but it might just mean you're getting last place or bottom of the rankings at every tournament or whatever. So I felt to even have an understanding of if I could compete with the best players, which are all Koreans in StarCraft 2, I would have to put a year, if not years, into fully dedicating my time only to this to even see where my mechanical limit was. And at the time, it's I was already kind of at the top in WoW. So it just felt such a massive commitment to maybe not really get much out of it. There's a game I already really enjoyed. I was already kind of at the top of that game and competing for world championships and stuff. So to move over to StarCraft was something that seemed pretty daunting because it's there's no guarantees, right? Maybe I put a year or 2 years in this and maybe the best I ever get is top 50 or top 100, which is still really, really good. But, it's not going to equate to a successful career, especially at that time in esports where people were making no money, right? Unless you're at the very, very top, you were making no money. And even if you were at the very top in a lot of games, you were still making no money. So, that's why I decided not really to pursue it. But it's definitely something, I've thought about in the past. I think anyone who gets to the top of any game in esports or just really any competitive thing, you always are going to have somewhat of that kind of that drive and that itch to compete in things. And to kind of prove you still have it or whatever. So it's definitely something I think about. But I just think that the reality is it's you have to have such an unbalanced life to be a top pro, right? It really has to be all consuming. It has to be everything you do. You have to eat, sleep, breathe this 24/7 if you want to truly have a chance at being the top of something. It's just not a healthy lifestyle. And now that I am married and I am I have other things that I want to do. I like spending time with my friends. I love spending time with my wife, having, other hobbies and activities. I think it's just that door has closed for me. But I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
My brief follow-up is, as a fellow Protoss, did you ever regret choosing Protoss and Wings of Liberty?
I actually really liked Protoss. I ended up playing random for a long time.
Oh, wow.
So I made I only got GM as Protoss, I think, but for a long time, when I was casting, I just played Masters random. And so for me, it's similar to what I do in League, where I play a lot of fill and stuff, because I always just felt if my goal is to be casting, it's good to understand some about all the positions, all the races, whatever it is, to have kind of more of a varied view. So Protoss, I think, is a lot of fun, even though I definitely had a bad rap. Everyone's always Protoss is so lame, people suck, but no, it's definitely fun.
Awesome.
Well,
Nice.
it's cool to hear some of those other aspects that, we may not get to see as League fans, hearing about, your personal life, some of your history. But now we definitely want to transition and pick your brain on some of the League stuff. So I know Alistair's got a good question regarding NA, the LCS, and really wants to pick your brain on something about this.
Yeah, so
frequent topic as of late has been, NA development and talent scouting. And I was wondering, just what are your thoughts on, the infrastructure and how things are ran nowadays? Because we've seen, Tenacity and Busio for 100 Thieves, for example, where and also with Danny, where we feel like, something happens and they get bullied a lot. And wondering, like, what do you think are some ways that we could actually improve the scouting, get more talent, especially with teams wanting to pull out of NACL?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a tough question, right? I think the reality is there is talent there, but it's also North America just has a way smaller player base than a lot of the other regions, especially if you're looking at LPL, LCK. LPL in particular, obviously, just has probably like 10x what everyone else's player base is, if not more than that. So the reality is there's going to be like a lot more players to pull from, and it's going to make for a much more competitive solo queue environment. That's why they can have super server and things like that, because they can pull top pros from every one of their servers and then combine them into like the ultimate solo queue server style of idea. I think in NA, I think that there is like some pretty good systems as far as like amateur goes, but I think the biggest issue is that there's not much of a system as far as like high school and collegiate and stuff like that. It feels like that has been going downhill compared to like going up. Like my understanding, and this has been a topic of conversation in the community as well, is just that there's just like a lot less young people playing League compared to a lot of other games, right? And so if you're looking towards the future of the sport and the future of LCS and trying to become more competitive, not less competitive internationally, the excuse me, the only real way to be less reliant on imports is to like improve those systems and get more people playing, so that we can find more talented kids, right? They clearly do exist. I mean, Jojo, Danny come up and are able to win with EG right away. There's obviously guys like Busio and Tenacity. Spawn obviously didn't have a great debut, but he's been really good in NACL. So there are examples of like, talented young players that are able to come up. It's obviously possible, but I definitely think, if we want to kind of like secure the future of the league and future of the sport without relying even more heavily on imports, then you have to do something about just increasing the player base and increasing interest in League of Legends among young people, right? If you can get a really healthy high school esports scene that leads into a healthy collegiate esports scene that leads into amateur, that leads into pro, like that's when you have like a real pipeline, right? Because I also think one of the difficulties is, even if you're a solo queue prodigy, the skills you're learning in solo queue don't directly correlate to pro, right? So having like the organized esports scene in the lower levels, I think, is a really big benefit, because people are learning some of those skills, throughout their high school and then their collegiate and so on and so forth, like you would in, going to the NBA or going to the NFL or whatever. Like, can you imagine if some of the, if like LeBron or whoever had like never coached or like never played, like never had to play a specific position or never had to like run a play, or like you wouldn't have any of like that basketball IQ when you get to the NBA, right? And that's something that can kind of happen with some of these pros, is sometimes these people are incredible in solo queue, but they've never kind of worked in the structured environment. And they've never learned some of the skills they actually need to be able to go and organize play. So I definitely think, it's a hard problem to solve, but trying to get more interest among young kids and trying to get, more of like a high school scene, I think is a really big deal.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that take, because I think like, especially you hear stories of LPL and LCK, it's like kids grow up and dream of being pro players like when they're super young. But hey, we do have like families like, like the Viper and like General Sniper and that whole like line of family. So I mean, there's still some potential. But yeah, League's just never been as popular in NA. Yeah, I just had a quick question for me, just like, it's super fast. It's been asked a lot, but I just want to give your thoughts after another finals. Is like, if you're in the grand finals, would you rather be waiting there and being able to watch your opponents play and then be ready, or do you think like the momentum of coming through the lower bracket and improving, like essentially, if you had to think of like two equal teams in the finals, which option would you choose?
I mean, if it's two perfectly equal teams, then I would still rather be waiting in the grand finals, honestly, because generally speaking, it's like teams have to reveal everything to get to the finals, so you're going to have more of an ability to prep specifically for them. I do think, and I kind of think this is what you're getting at, that like maybe there should be more of an upper bracket advantage. Like when I played a lot in tournaments, I always felt it was something that there should be. Because especially there are certain circumstances where it's like you can literally win more games against this team in playoffs and you lose, right? And it's it can become kind of weird, right? Like if I 3-0 you in the earlier like upper bracket, and then I go to the upper bracket finals, I'm waiting in grand finals, you go through lower bracket, you come back, you beat me 3-2 in finals, right? I've actually won 5 games against you, you've won 3, but you're the champion. So like to me that never really made sense. I always thought that was pretty lame. It is difficult though, because like in WoW and a lot of other games, they just do like a reset, right? So it's like the games are short enough that we could just run it back. Yeah. So if it was a best of 5 or best of 7, it didn't add like 5 hours or 7 hours to the broadcast. The reality with League is that the games are so damn long with pick and ban and the actual like games themselves that, you know, and even just like time to reset in between, like our broadcast breaks are only, I don't know, like 15 minutes on average, I would say. And that's time for the players to use the bathroom, eat, talk about the next game. Like that is why it is that length. So it's about an hour per game, right? On average. So that is the difficulty of finding something that is a good advantage for the upper bracket without, you know, extending the day too long. Because the reality is you can't do double best of 5, right? You just can't. No. And if you decide to do double best of 3, for example, for the grand finals, then it could be a 2-0 and then you're just done. Right. And then it's like a 2-hour day. So that wouldn't really be great either. So then you're looking at things like, I mean, we already do have side selection. That is the advantage, right? That
can be pretty big too.
Yeah. And it can, especially like in certain metas where if blue side is winning all the games, you know, that can be series deciding potentially. You could do things like, I don't know, maybe red, like the lower bracket team gets 1 less ban or something in the first phase. I don't know. Like there's things that you could experiment with, right? Yeah. But I think it isn't super easy as it is in some other games where it's like, you know, fighting games, you just like, they just run it back and wow, we just ran it back. Like in a lot of games where it was just shorter, you just ran it back. You can also do, you know, like one game advantage. My pitch for this when I had talked to like league ops and stuff before was make finals a BO7 with a 1 game advantage for the team in the upper bracket. I like that. And I think you can do that because then it's like the longest it can possibly be is 6 games, right? So it's can only be 1 hour longer for the broadcast, which I think like isn't that crazy. And the shortest series you can still have is the same as what it already is, which is a 3-0 from the team that already has 1 game advantage, right? So like that would be my pitch, but there are like logistical, you know, issues with it. And even some of the venues I know have like time restrictions on when they have to be closed. So that can be a bit weird as well. But yeah, that would probably be my like only thought is maybe you do best of 7, 1 game advantage for winner.
Yeah, I think a lot of those have been tossed around, but it's impossible to find like a perfect solution for it. But I hope someone really smart and clever can find some really unique solution. I mean, because they've done some pretty interesting stuff with the formats recently, so I can have hope for it out there.
Maybe just give them more alliance or side select, like all the matches they get side select. And that's
that's interesting too. I think that runs into the problem where it's like in a certain meta that can be too overbearing, maybe, and you can't really predict the meta at times. But yeah, I mean, that is interesting because Cloud9, like, they're in the finals. They don't actually have an option to lose a single best of series the entire time. So
yeah, that's pretty. I mean, there's things they could potentially do if they want to do just pick ban as well. Like if you can separate, you know, first pick from side select and stuff like that, or like last pick from side select team, you could theoretically give a team like side select plus like whether they want first pick or last pick and things like that, right? So you could essentially like decouple it from the side of the map, but like from, you know, whether your first pick or second pick, but allow teams to choose side of map plus like pick order. So there's definitely things that they could do, but it would obviously take an adjustment to pick ban. And that would change, you know, the experience for tournament versus like solo queue, which I know at least in the past, part of the goal had been that it stays pretty similar, right? That pick ban is similar to like what you're experiencing playing solo queue or playing normals or whatever. So there's definitely options, but it is a hard problem for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we've got one more take for you, and this actually comes from Kimmer. He's the one that set this whole thing up. So special shout out to Kimmer for being brave enough. You know, they laughed at me because I actually met you at the finals and they were all like in Discord, did you tell them about the podcast? And I was like, no. And they were like, you are a chicken. And they were flaming me. And so Kimmer was the one
we weren't flaming
that set this all up. So thank you, Kimmer. Here is his hot take, and he wants you to kind of give your thoughts and reaction to it. So he thinks that Golden Guardians will make it back to summer finals, and his reasoning is because they're going to get such good experience at MSI. Do you think this is, you know, actually going to happen?
I mean, I think it's definitely possible, right? But MSI can give you a lot of valuable experience. And we saw like EG obviously was like in the playoffs. They didn't end up, but like they went 9-9 in spring last year, and then they went to MSI, and they obviously were by far the best team in regular season and summer. But the other side of that is burnout, right? And the reality is the schedule is really, really rough for teams when you go to everything. A team that doesn't even make playoffs and doesn't go international essentially has, I mean, we don't, I would say 18, but now we do 8-week seasons because we have super weeks, right? So 16 weeks of the year. But if you go playoffs, you're adding like 3-4 weeks there. And then if you're going to MSI, you're obviously like not taking any time off because you're practicing for MSI, you're boot camping. And then MSI is a month. And then there's 1, maybe 2 weeks before regular season starts in summer. And then if you run the gauntlet there, then you go straight to Worlds, right? So it's like the schedule can be really brutal. So I do think it's a bit of a double-edged sword. I think that if they can kind of like, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, like stay even keel a little bit and not burn out and still get a lot from MSI, then it's definitely possible. It's hard to predict that because it does feel like they had such kind of like an incredible run, right? You know, obviously they were really good for a span in the regular season, but then things started to really cool off again. So it's hard to judge, like, did this team just kind of hit their stride at the right time, or is this actually their level now? So, and I think we'll get to judge a lot of that at MSI. I think if they go to MSI and they have a solid performance and they're able to not burn out, then they definitely have a good shot of making it back to finals, or at least getting, you know, like top 3 and making it to Worlds, because it is super valuable experience. You're going to have better practice partners than, you know, anyone who's staying home, right? And because most of the teams are going to be taking time off, you're going to MSI and playing all the best teams in the world. But it can also be brutal because you'll talk to teams, and if you go and you're one of the lower tier teams and you go international, then sometimes you just go international and you just lose every scrim every day and you're just getting absolutely trashed, right? And that can be really, really tough to like just lose 10 games in a row every single day and then come home and you're just like, I don't even know what's good anymore. You know, like what works? Are all our strategies bad? Are we bad? Like, it can be tough for sure.
What is life? Yeah.
Hey, Golden Guardians are used to losing, so they have the experience.
That's the buff.
They're the tankiest team there.
It is a bit of a double whammy with them because they'll have to go through play-ins through MSI, so they have to play even more. But yeah, I mean, they got the real DRX energy, you know, like just super underdogs being like just doubted all along the roads. I mean, a lot of them have been in the scene for so long, but like are having like their second stride. So I have hope for them. They have a lot of experience on the team that I think most MSI teams, they make it to Worlds, right? It was only Cloud9 in like 2020 or something. So
obviously it's a bit of a different format because it is 2 teams now going to MSI and stuff versus you know, like just the best team. But I mean, I think they definitely have a good shot. I mean, for me, like my baseline expectation is that they make it a group stage, right? If they make it through the play-in stage, I'm gonna be happy. You know, of course, would I like them to do more than that? Would I like them to win? Yeah, of course. But like for me, it's definitely one of those things where I'm like, this is the baseline for success. You have to make it through groups. You know, after finals, I was talking to some of the players and the teams and stuff. I'm like, no matter what, can't lose to LEC. Like, we just have to be here.
We have to. That's
please. Recently, so it's mostly on Mad, but
we just have to hope Mad qualifies, right? As long as Mad qualifies, we're looking good.
It would be sad for BDS to not make it, but I'm actually scared of BDS, so
all LCS fans have to be Mad fans because those guys are taking L's left and right internationally. So.
Any LEC fans out there? We're just joking, just kidding. Yep.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, no matter what, it's always like when this happens, LCS fans just need to unite and always hope for the best because that's what we're here for, man. We're loyal. Yeah. We'll take it. You know what I mean?
Of course. I mean, I think that's the fun. Like people will always ask me like, why do you bother cheering for these teams, or why do you get excited for the teams and stuff? And I'm like, man, because that's the fun of it, right? That's sports, right? That's fandom. You know, like I grew up with the Raptors. My dad was a big Raptors fan. When they came in the league, I've basically been watching the Raptors ever since they came in the league. So it's like, it took them like 20 something years to win a championship, right. But like when they did it, like, you know, it felt incredible. That's right. And I think that it's fun to kind of be along for the ride, you know, even if LCS struggles internationally, when we do have our moments, it feels that much sweeter. Right. And, you know, it's like even just winning the BO5 against Mad in play-ins last year felt like incredible. That was really, really fun to watch. Obviously, you know, like when TL made MSI finals, that was really exciting. When C9 made World Finals, semifinals, when CLG made MSI finals, like when we do have those things, or even just getting to quarterfinals at Worlds and stuff feels like this huge victory. So it makes it like way more sweet, I think, you know, when you're cheering and you're there for all the L's when they finally do well, it feels really good.
That's how
That's
sports
right.
is. I think
Yeah.
sports fans are
Sports
just
are.
a little spoiled because the timeline's so short. But
Yeah.
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 I'm down. 6-day and Huhi, running it back to MSI finals.
do
It's
it.
happening. We're doing
I'm
it.
they're
happy.
so scared right now.
Yeah, we got this. All right. Well, I just thank you so much, Azael, for hopping on here. I know this was a big kind of surprise and dream for us to really have,
Yeah.
you on here and get your insights on all of these things. So we really appreciate you taking some time, from your time off to be with us here today. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on.